Okay, so these are my corrections for the non-calculator portion of the test. This is my test, and then this is the recorrections that I've done. So, for the first part, it asks to draw out the triangle. So, I know how to do this because it tells me that alpha is between 0 and pi over 2, which means it's going to land to this region, which also makes sine and cosine positive. And then for beta, it lies between pi and 3 pi over 2, so it's going to be in the third quadrant. And sine and cosine are going to be negative in this quadrant. So, yes. Okay, and then for these three equations, we use the sum and difference formulas. So because it's sine beta minus alpha, we use the formula that is sine beta times cosine alpha minus sine alpha times cosine beta. To plug it in, we just use, so for beta, it's just negative 4 over 5, which is using the sign to get these two values in each of the oh my gosh, it's just using a sign with the triangle. That's what I'm trying to say. So then for cosine A, which is right here, it's going to be, you go to the triangle that is alpha and you do adjacent hypotenuse, which is adjacent hypotenuse, and then you just do the same for each here. And so then we just solve it after we do the fractions and we get our answer, 35 over 85. And then same for this one too, so but this one's cosine, so it changes the actual formula that we're using. So it's going to be cosine beta times cosine alpha plus sine beta times sine alpha. So it's the same thing where you use the triangle to fill in the formula. So cosine beta is going to be negative 3 over 5 because adjacent and hypotenuse. And then cosine alpha is going to be 15 over 17, which you can see here. And same there. So repeat that again for this one, which is going to be sine beta, which is negative 4 over 5, and then sine alpha, which is 8 over 17. And then we just simplify these, subtract them, and we get negative 77 over 85. And then for tan, this one is simpler because we just take these two answers that we just did, because tan is sine over cosine. So we just do sine over cosine, and then we get tangent, which is negative 37 over 77. Negative 36 over negative 77, sorry. And then for tangent, cotangent, and cosecant, this is another simpler one because these are just the reciprocals of the ones that we've already found. So cotangent, secant, and cosecant will just be, this one will be the reciprocal of tan, which is negative 77 over 36, and then this one will be the reciprocal of cosine, which is 85 over negative 85 over 77, sorry. And then for cosecant, it's the opposite, or the reciprocal of sine, which is 85 over 36. And that solves for these 6 problems. Okay, and so now it wants to draw the triangle, so we will use tangent. So because it's negative 36 over 77, so we have, this will be our sine and this will be our cosine, so we can draw it down here, 36, 77, where you go there, and then to solve that you just do the Pythagorean theorem and we get 85. So that's how you draw the triangle there. Okay, and so now for this one it wants us to do the sine 2 alpha for, and cosine 2 alpha and tan alpha 2 alpha. So for this one we're going to use double angle formulas, and so do it over here. So we have sine 2a, so we're going to use sine 2 alpha, so we're going to use 2 sine alpha cosine alpha because that's the formula. And then we do the same as we did here, and we use the triangle there to plug into the numbers here. And then once we do all of that, we get 240 over 289 after we plug everything in. And then we have cosine 2 alpha, so we're going to use the formula cosine squared alpha minus sine squared alpha. And then again, doing the same thing where we take the values from the original triangle and just plug them in based on the cosine adjacent over hypotenuse or sine opposite over hypotenuse. So we do both squared because that's the formula. And then you just solve it, and we get 161 over 289. And then same concept for tangent, except for this one, it's like the sum and difference one where sine can just go over cosine to get our value. And so this will be from least to greatest. So because cosine is 161 over 289, that makes it the least out of all of these. And then sine would be next for 240 over 289, and then because tangent would be greater than 1, once we divide that, that one would be the greatest. Okay, and so now for this part of the test, it wants us to write each expression as a sine, cosine, or tangent of one angle and give the exact value. So for this, it's basically using the sum and difference formula again. So because this is sine 87 degrees cosine 93 degrees plus sine 93 degrees times cosine 87 degrees. This is a sine sum and difference formula. And because sine stays the same when it's addition, I just showed that which formula it was, and then which but which part of the formula to use for this part right here. So because it stays the same as addition, we use addition here, and this is the first part of the sum and difference formula, when it would be like sine parentheses a plus b parentheses equals, and then it would be this equation right there. So then we just take the first two values and plug them into here. So it would be sine 87 plus 93 degrees, and that would give us sine 180. So with that, we can simplify it further to, if we use the unit circle, sine at 180 degrees is 0. So then the same for this one, except it's now cosine. So we're going to use a cosine difference formula. And when it's addition, cosine is going to be subtraction, so it's going to be cosine a minus b. So then we take these two values and we put them into that right there. So pi over 3 minus 5 pi over 6, and then we just solve it. And then we come to cosine negative pi over 2, which would be 0 because that would be cosine at negative pi over 2 on the unit circle. And then for tan, it's the same idea as the previous two. So we have this is what we wanted to do. So it's going to be tan a plus b. So then we take these two up here and we just plug it into there like that and solve it. So then we get tan 5 pi over 4. So we go to 5 pi over 4 and we take on the unit circle, and we take sine and divide it by cosine, because that's how we find tan. And then we will, after solving it, we'll get 1, so tan will be 1 there. And then nextly for D, we have 2 sine 165 times cosine 165. So this one is a double angle formula, so we're just going to do the same idea but with different formulas. So when it's sine 2a, we're going to use just sine times the plus these two, is what I'm trying to say. And so we get sine 330 degrees. So sine at 330 degrees is negative 1/2, so that would be our answer for D. Okay, and now on to E. It's this is going to be sign. So it's negative or subtraction now, so we're going to do subtraction. Same thing, take the first two values, plug them in, find them on the unit circle. So sign at 300 and sign at minus sign 135. So we're going to have negative 3, negative radical 3, over 2 minus 2 radical over 2. And so we have this, but we can't go any further with that because we can't subtract these two. So that would be our answer. And then we have tangent again. So this one's going to be a double angle, but with tangent. So we just take pi over 12 and then do 2 times pi over 12, so we get that. And then we'll get tan pi over 6, and we can take that onto the unit circle, and we'll get radical 3 over 2 over 1/2, because sine and then cosine at pi over 6 would be those two values. And so then we have to simplify it even more. But then we get tangent will equal 2 radical 3 over 2. Okay, and then we have the same idea, double angle formula for cosine. So same thing, we take, or a little bit different actually. We just take this value and times it times 2 for cosine, and we have 6 pi over 2, so simplify, we have 3 pi, and that would be cosine 540. So that means we basically go around, and then so cosine 540 would just be negative 1. Okay, and then another cosine double angle formula. So it's going to be 75 times 2, and we get cosine 150. And then on a unit circle, cosine 150 would be negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, and now for our final ones, these three down here, we'll have, it's another double angle formula, cosine again, so same idea, just 2, cosine 2a, so it's going to be cosine 2 times 22.5, so we'll get cosine 45, which at the unit circle, cosine 45 is radical 2 over 2. And then we have tangent. So this one's going to be a tangent sum and difference formula, so we're going to have tan a minus b. So we take the two top values and we plug it in, so tan pi over 4 minus 2 pi over 3, and then we plug that in, so, but we have the values here, but that's as far as we can simplify that one, so that would be our answer. And then for the last one, cosine, this one's going to be cosine sum and difference formula, so we're going to use cosine a minus b because this one is addition, so this one has to be subtraction. So then we take our first two values here and we plug them back in as with the other ones. And so we have 5 pi over 12 minus pi over 4, so we have to obviously make them common denominators. So then we get cosine 2 pi over 2, and that's not a specific value at the unit circle, so we leave it there. And that's it. Thank you.